Have you ever been afraid, not of something out there, but of something inside? That moment when you're alone, and a part of you whispers thoughts you don't want to hear, feelings you were taught to push away. What if I told you that most people spend their entire lives running from themselves? We live in a world that celebrates light, but condemns the shadows. We're told to smile when we're breaking, to be strong when we're hurting. But what if true strength came from facing the very darkness we fear? This video isn't just another feel-good message. It's a mirror, one that dares you to look beyond your masks, into the parts you've buried, forgotten, maybe even hated. And in part 3, I'll share Carl Jung's most powerful warning, one that could shift the way you see your entire life. Let me tell you a story. There was a man, respected, accomplished, admired, but every night he drank alone. Not because he was weak, but because he was exhausted from pretending that he was always fine. Inside there was rage, fear, grief. He buried it so deep, no one could see, not even himself. Until one day, it burst, not with violence, but silence. He sat in the dark, and for the first time, didn't try to escape it. And that night was the beginning of his healing. If you've ever felt like that man, if a part of you is tired of running, stay, watch. And when you're ready, type one word in the comments. Ready. Ready to face the only darkness that can truly set you free. There's something no one ever taught you, not in school, not at home, not even in those self-help books that promise to fix your mindset. It's this: everyone has a darkness inside them, not just criminals, not just people with issues. Everyone, you, me. That darkness isn't evil. It's not broken. It's just unseen. You see, from the moment we were children, we were taught what was acceptable. Don't cry too much. Don't get angry. Don't be selfish. Don't be weak. So what did we do? We buried every part of us that didn't fit the mold. We wore smiles over sadness. We silenced our rage with logic. We performed instead of living. But what happens to the parts of you that are ignored? They don't disappear. They wait. They become your inner darkness. Not because they're wrong, but because they were left in the dark for too long. That's what Carl Jung meant when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Your fear of confrontation, your jealousy in relationships, that sudden burst of anger that even you didn't see coming. It's not random. It's not just your bad side. It's your forgotten side. And here's the truth no one says out loud. The more you deny it, the more control it has over you. Think about it. You're in a situation where someone disrespects you. You stay silent. You smile. You say, "It's okay," but deep down, you're boiling. And one day, maybe not now, maybe not tomorrow, that rage will erupt. Not because you're cruel, but because you've never been allowed to feel. The real tragedy isn't that we have darkness. It's that we were taught to fear it instead of understand it. Because what if, just what if, that darkness held not only your pain, but also your deepest power? If any part of this feels familiar, know this: you are not broken, you're just waking up. And in the next part, we'll talk about the biggest lie society tells you. One that makes you afraid to feel, even when your soul is begging for truth. But before we go there, pause. Ask yourself, what have I buried that's still trying to speak? Type one word in the comments, just one, to name it. Anger, shame, sadness, grief. Let it breathe. It's time. They told you to stay positive, to smile through the pain, to look on the bright side, no matter how dark it gets. But here's the truth no one wants to admit. That kind of forced positivity is a prison. When someone you love dies, they say, "At least they're in a better place." When your heart is breaking, they say, everything happens for a reason. When you're drowning in stress, they say, just be grateful. But what if gratitude isn't what your soul needs in that moment? What if what you really need is to feel? We've been sold a lie, that being positive is the goal. But real healing doesn't happen in the light. It begins in the shadows. Carl Jung didn't talk about happiness as something you chase. He talked about wholeness, about embracing the totality of who you are, not just the pretty parts. That includes your sadness, your confusion, your rage, even the parts of you that scare you, because fake positivity doesn't heal wounds, it hides them, and anything that's hidden grows in silence. That's why so many people smile in public, but cry alone. Why the strongest person in the room sometimes ends their life. Why the most successful man can feel the most empty. They've been taught to perform positivity, but never how to process pain. So if you've ever looked in the mirror and thought, I should be happy, but I'm not, you're not alone. You're not weak. You're not broken. You're just human. And your emotions, even the ugly ones, are not enemies. They're messages. Messages saying, something inside you needs attention. Something inside you deserves compassion. But if we keep pushing them away, we miss the chance to listen. And here's the secret they don't teach in school. The most positive people are not those who avoid pain. They are the ones who have walked through it. So the next time someone tells you to just think positive, look them in the eye and say, I'd rather think honestly. Because that's where the real healing begins. In the next part, we'll dive into Carl Jung's most important teaching, the one that explains exactly why the parts you ignore end up running your life. But for now, ask yourself, where in my life am I pretending I'm okay when I'm not? And if you're brave enough, share that in the comments. Let's stop pretending. Let's start feeling. Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. It sounds poetic, but it's not just a quote. It's a warning. And for most of us, it's already happening. Think about this. Have you ever found yourself in the same kind of toxic relationship, again and again? Or sabotaged your own success, right when things were going well? Or reacted with intense emotion, jealousy, rage, fear, over something that shouldn't matter? That's not fate. That's your shadow, pulling the strings. You see, Jung believed that every part of you that you reject, your anger, your shame, your insecurity, your fear, doesn't disappear. It gets buried. It becomes unconscious. And from there, it takes control. That angry outburst, that's not just stress. That's the 6-year-old version of you who never felt safe to speak. That self-sabotage, it's not laziness. It's the wounded part of you that believes you don't deserve joy. The truth is, the shadow is not evil. It's everything you haven't made peace with. And the longer you ignore it, the louder it gets. But here's where it gets worse. Because the shadow doesn't just control your actions, it shapes your entire worldview. You start seeing others through your own wounds. You mistrust love because you've been betrayed. You envy success because deep down you feel unworthy. The unconscious projects itself onto the world until every room feels hostile, every person feels dangerous, and every opportunity feels like a trap. But none of it is coming from the world. It's coming from inside. That's why Jung's work wasn't about being better. It was about becoming whole. Because when you integrate your shadow, you stop blaming, you stop projecting, you start owning your story. And that's when the real power begins. So here's the question Jung would ask you now. What is one thing about yourself that you pretend isn't there? Not to shame you, but to free you. Because what you suppress controls you. But what you bring into the light transforms you. In the next part, we'll talk about the fear. Why, even when we know we should face the darkness, we still run from it. But for now, if this part hit home, type one word in the comments: aware. It's not weakness. It's awakening. What if I told you that fear isn't your enemy? What if I said, fear is just a message? Most of us spend our lives running from fear, avoiding it, numbing it, drowning it in distractions, achievements, even spirituality. But what if fear was trying to help you? You see, fear is a signal, not a stop sign. It's the voice of your nervous system saying, something here needs attention. Not rejection. But because we've been taught to fear fear itself, we react, not to the situation, but to the feeling. You feel sadness, you scroll, you feel anger, you suppress, you feel lost, you pretend you're fine, and the message gets missed. Jung believed that every emotion, especially the uncomfortable ones, carries intelligence. Your fear is often the exact doorway to the healing you need most. That's why your darkness, your shadow, isn't screaming to scare you. It's whispering truths no one else dares to tell you. It's saying you're exhausted from pretending. You're craving to be seen. You're hiding from the very part of you that needs love the most. Your darkness doesn't want to destroy you. It wants to integrate, but first, you have to listen. That's the scariest part, isn't it? Sitting in the silence, facing the ache, letting it rise without judgment. But here's the paradox. The more you resist, the louder it becomes. The moment you surrender, the fear becomes a friend. You start to notice patterns, realize where your trauma began, recognize the inner child behind the rage. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. So let me ask you, what's the emotion you've been afraid to feel? Name it. Say it out loud. Let it breathe. Because the longer it stays unspoken, the longer it controls you. In the next part, we'll talk about why society, especially for men, teaches us to fear vulnerability, and how that one lie keeps millions of people emotionally numb. But before we get there, drop the word you've been avoiding in the comments. Just one. That's all it takes to begin. There's a silent rule that boys learn early. Don't cry. Man up. Don't be weak. It's not always said out loud, but it's there. In the way we're raised. In the movies we watch. In the way people look at a man who breaks down. Society doesn't teach men how to feel. It teaches them how to perform. Be strong. Be logical. Be the provider. And whatever you do, don't show vulnerability. Because vulnerability, that's been branded as weakness. So what do most men do? They wear the mask, the smile that says, I'm fine, the ambition that hides the emptiness, the silence that buries the scream. But here's the truth, no one tells you. That mask may protect you, but it also isolates you. You become a stranger to your own heart. You start to forget what real connection feels like, because no one can love the mask. They can only love the man behind it. And the more you hide, the lonelier it gets. Carl Jung knew this well. He saw how modern man is spiritually starving, not because he lacks success, but because he lacks soul, because he has cut off half of himself, his emotion, his softness, his truth. You were never meant to be the strong one all the time. You were meant to be whole, strong and scared, grounded and grieving, clear and confused. That's not weakness. That's being fully human. And here's the paradox. The man who hides his pain is fragile. The man who faces it is indestructible. So if you've been holding it in for years, if you've been taught to never let them see you sweat, maybe it's time to ask, who taught me that? And were they ever truly free? In the next part, we'll look at what happens when we suppress that darkness for too long, how it shows up in ways we don't expect, and sometimes in ways we can't undo. But before we go there, take a breath, and if you've ever felt like you're performing instead of living, comment with one word: tired. Not because you're weak, but because you're ready. Suppression is like sweeping dirt under the rug. At first it seems clean, it looks good. You convince yourself, it's fine, I'm fine. But over time, that rug starts to bulge. It's harder to walk without tripping. And one day, it all spills out. That's what happens when you deny your darkness. You can suppress the sadness, but it leaks through your apathy. You can suppress the anger, but it lashes out in traffic, in arguments, in silence. You can suppress the shame, but it shows up every time you sabotage something good. What you suppress doesn't stay buried. It waits, it festers, and eventually it finds a way out. Sometimes it looks like anxiety, sometimes like addiction, sometimes like depression that has no clear cause, and tragically, sometimes it becomes illness, because the body remembers everything the mind tries to forget. There was a man, let's call him Adam. By all appearances, he had it together. A steady job, a nice home, a loving family. But inside, he carried rage, not the loud, violent kind, the quiet kind, the kind that comes from decades of feeling like his pain didn't matter. He never yelled, never cried, never asked for help. But one day, he just shut down, stopped caring, stopped connecting. And his family, confused and heartbroken, didn't understand why. Neither did he, because no one ever taught him. That unprocessed pain becomes paralysis. That numbness is a trauma response too. That the strongest man in the room can be the most broken. You see, when you deny your darkness, you don't erase it. You just lose the ability to hear what it's trying to say. And here's the cost. You stop knowing yourself. You stop trusting your instincts. You start living someone else's life, because yours feels too dangerous to touch. But it doesn't have to end that way. In the next part, we'll explore what it means to integrate the darkness, to stop running, and start listening. Not to be perfect, but to be whole. And if you see a piece of yourself in Adam, just comment one word, seen. Because sometimes that's the first step to being real again. Healing isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more of who you truly are. That's why Carl Jung never said, fix yourself. He said, integrate your shadow, because your darkness isn't a mistake. It's a missing piece. We've been conditioned to think that healing means erasing the parts of us we don't like, the anger, the shame, the jealousy, the fear. But that's not healing. That's rejection. And rejection, even of yourself, always leaves a scar. True peace doesn't come from fighting your darkness. It comes from inviting it in, sitting with it, asking it, what are you trying to protect me from? Because that rage, it once defended your boundaries. That fear, it once kept you safe. That grief, it means you cared deeply. Every dark emotion has roots in something human. And when you stop judging those parts, you start listening. You realize your shadow isn't here to destroy you. It's here to complete you. Integration is about letting your pain have a voice, but not the steering wheel. It's about holding space for the part of you that's still learning how to trust, how to feel, how to love, and paradoxically, when you embrace your darkness, it loses its power to control you. That's the secret. You don't need to eliminate your darkness. You need to become the kind of person who can hold it with compassion, with curiosity, with courage. Because that's where inner peace lives. Not in the absence of pain, but in the presence of wholeness. So here's your invitation. Stop trying to be good. Start trying to be whole. In the next part, we'll meet the man who did exactly that, who faced the storm inside and found not fear, but freedom. But for now, take one moment, close your eyes, and whisper to the part of you that hurts, I see you. You belong. If that feels like a beginning, comment one word, whole, because that's the journey we're on. He wasn't the loudest man in the room. He didn't lift the heaviest weights. He didn't have the most followers, or the perfect mindset, or the daily affirmations. But he was a warrior. Not because he conquered others, but because he faced himself. His name doesn't matter. Because he could be anyone. He could be you. He was the kind of man who had spent years hiding, behind achievements, behind jokes, behind being the strong one. But one day, he broke. Not loudly, quietly. It wasn't a dramatic collapse. It was something more terrifying. He stopped feeling, stopped caring, stopped recognizing the man in the mirror. Until one night, he sat alone, no distractions, no music, no scrolling, no pretending, just silence. And in that silence, he met his shadow. The grief he never cried, the rage he never admitted, the shame he never told anyone about. And for the first time, he didn't run. He let the tears come, let the ache rise, let the fear speak. And in that moment, something shifted. Because true warriors don't avoid pain, they walk through it. They don't need applause. They don't need validation. They just need truth. The truth of their own hearts, the truth of their own scars, the truth of who they are, beneath the masks, the roles, the noise. That's what makes a man powerful. Not perfection, presence. So if you're still trying to be the man everyone expects, stop. Be the man your soul needs you to be. The one who can sit with pain without turning away. The one who can say, I'm not okay without shame. The one who leads not with control, but with consciousness. That's the warrior within, and he's waiting for you. In the next part, we'll ask one final question, the kind that only the brave can answer. But before that, if you felt yourself in this story, comment one word, warrior, because your power has always been within. Imagine standing in front of a mirror, not to fix your hair, not to check your outfit, but to really see, not just your face, but your fear, your wounds, your shadow. Could you look without turning away? This is the mirror test, and most people fail it, not because they're weak, but because they've never been taught how to see themselves without judgment. It's easy to look at others and point fingers. Easy to blame your past, your parents, your pain. But when you stand still, alone, silent, present, the real work begins. Because in that mirror, you'll see everything you've avoided, the choices you regret, the things you've said when you were hurting, the parts of yourself you swore you'd never become. But you'll also see your strength, your survival, your softness that never gave up. Carl Jung said, knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. You can't lead others unless you've walked through your own fire. You can't love deeply unless you've loved your own brokenness. You can't be free until you've stopped lying to yourself. This isn't the end of your healing. It's the beginning of your honesty. So here's the final question. Can you look into the mirror and say, this is me, all of me, and I am still worthy? Because that is courage. Not changing, not fixing, but seeing. So if this video touched something in you, don't just scroll, don't just like. Pause, look in the mirror, and if you're brave enough, comment one word. Seen. Let this be the moment. You stop running. Let this be the moment. You start living.